the main tenets of QBO, no file transfer. Obviously, that's an obvious one, right? No accountant's copy file, backup, portable, right? QBB, QBX, QBY, any of that stuff, right? Collaboration within the firm. They would have gone over that in the first account best practice with team and QBOA, but also collaborating with your client. Automating data entry, we'll look at that today, just how you set it up where it is. And then mobility, we won't be looking at the phone app. We got other things to cover. But these are the main kind of saving time things. Now, built to scale, though we might see QBO as maybe smaller. We do have an advanced product now within QBO above Plus for getting towards mid-sized businesses. And then, of course, with third-party apps, right? That's where you could use QBO with, say, SOS inventory and essentially have a third of the cost of what enterprise with advanced inventory would be annually and more functionality. So there's, it's, yes, QuickBooks is like a hub, I guess, but I look at it as just one of the apps in the ecosystem for the accounting, right? And then you have all these other apps. And you can find out more about that. I'll put there, you might not even be there yet. You might already be using third-party apps, right? So it's a lot of third-party apps depending on the niche or automating data entry, fetching docs, whatever, apps.com. And those all connect with QuickBooks Online. So QBO Plus, I'm actually going to be in that file for the next 55 minutes, right? Or I think this one goes 75 minutes, right? So the next 70-ish minutes, right? It has everything in Essentials because you might have a lot of clients on Essentials. And Essentials is where you start tracking accounts payable, recurring transactions, the delayed charge form, which is like a non-posting sales form that can go to an invoice, right? It's not really an estimate. It's just another non-posting sales form you could use. A multi-currency, all those start with Essentials, and then Essentials has, up to 3 users. But then Plus has up to 5, and that's a hard limit now. Not counting about the accountant firm. All the staff are coming through QBOA, right? So that doesn't matter as long as you have one person in the accountant seat. And we'll look at the user list too. But if you need more than 5 users now, I got an advanced slide. We'll look at that. But if you are a desktop proponent, and you probably have some clients on desktop, class location tracking. You're used to that, or at least class tracking. So that's what Plus is for. Purchase orders. We have an inventory module within QBO Plus, which is first in, first out. Method, we know Pro and Premier and Enterprise is essentially average cost. I know Enterprise you can turn FIFO on, but as we know, conventional QuickBooks Desktop, meaning Pro and Premier, you guys are probably using QuickBooks Accountant Edition, which is Premier, right? So that's going to be average cost. But at least QBO Plus and Advanced have the inventory, but it's FIFO valuation method. The main reason I use Plus is because most of the things I do are service-based, not really inventory-based. It's mostly service-based. But I like to tag projects to expenses or cost of goods sold or items I purchase so I can get a P&L by, profitability by job, if you will. You really need Plus. In order to do that, you need Plus or Advanced. Essentials does not do that. Essentials cannot have an item on a cost form. You need Plus to have an item on a cost form, like a bill or a check, 2-sided items, right? So I think for me, those are the main reasons why I would always be in Plus. And I don't even use Advanced much, but I'm going to go over a slide with Advanced. However, one day you might have clients that really are about Advanced, and there are some new usage limits with regular QBO where where if someone needs to add more classes or accounts, and I'm going to go over those today because they just landed in my settings. So we're in the client file. I want to look at things in the client file that are important to consider. I am recording this, right? So it'll be a little different than the normal account best practice in the client file we do because of the usage limits, right? So it's important to align there. One day you might have clients on Advanced, So, and then budgets. So that's why Plus would be. And this used to be like the cap for QBO, right? You have Simple Start Essentials Plus, and Plus was like the highest level of QBO. Now, I know we have a self-employed product too. That's really just for self-employed clients. There's no chart of accounts. It's just Schedule C categories. It's not really transactions. It's just bank feed. But you might have someone who's a musician or an artist or something, and you're on Etsy or whatever, and those types of clients, right? You can even add self-employed to your QBOA, right? You can add a client that has self-employed, or they could invite you. So there is self-employed, which is like the first level of QBO. Then Simple Start, Essentials, Plus. But now we have Advanced, right? Advanced would be the next level. It is not Enterprise. okay? But it does expand on the reporting. We're going to be having some advanced webinars after tax season, probably a couple a month just to get everybody up to speed. But if you need 6+ users, if you just want better reporting, we integrated Phenom, which is a third-party reporting app for consolidated reporting, charts, graphs. You can build your own reports from scratch. That is inside of QBO Advanced in the reporting section. Batch import invoices, custom user permissions. Soon we're coming out with batch invoicing, right? That'll be in Advanced, right? And custom fields, right? So this is going to be more like, I don't know, Pro has custom fields even, at the item level. So some of the gaps for product-based and service-based businesses we're adding into Advanced. Okay, so I do have a video on Advanced. If you want to know more, just email me. I'll send it to you. It's like 16 minutes long, which is probably 3 times longer than anybody can really watch anymore. Anything over 5 minutes is just really unacceptable. But if you want to know more about Advanced, it's an overview. But I spent like 7 or 8 minutes of that 16 in Phenom. Okay, so and there is a sample file for Advanced now. But the reason why I'm telling you about this is because we're probably going to start with users and usage limits in the client file, just so we know what that is, and then we'll go through like cleanup and stuff. So here's what we're going to go through. Accountant tools, overview tab, report tools, batch reclassify, audit log, close date. Some of these common mistakes down below in the agenda, I'm going to use up top as we're going through. I want to go through all the key settings that are in Plus and Advanced, just so you know. Like you might, oh wow, well I can use QBO Plus for a service-based business? Great, I have a client in mind that wants to be more mobile. So you'll just know where to go turn some of these things on for profitability by or two-sided items. Then we'll look at roles and usage limits, reporting customization, how to add debit credit column, auto send feature, the bank rec discrepancy report, an overview of chart of accounts, mostly around the detail type phenomenon and merging if you have to. Then a quick thing of bank feeds and rules and how to automate data entry just in the product. Recurring transactions is the other way to automate data entry. This would be outside of the third-party app, and then you have transaction messaging. I wanted to show that, right? So there are several transaction types that you could ask a client a question on, and they would see usually it works. It's kind of intermittent, all right? And then, like I said, please download the deck because I have all these like screenshots on common mistakes your client would make that I might not get to. We'll see. We got a whole hour yet, so probably will. So I'm in a Plus file, right? Just wanted to align on the different levels, and now there is Advanced. Now you know. And email me if you want to watch the video. I do want to ask a poll, if that's okay. It's just how many clients do you have on QBO right now? Less than 5, 5 to 20, 20 plus. So if you just want to answer the poll, hopefully you guys will see that. Oh, cool. Melissa says 20 plus. Yeah, when I was doing this, even when we were doing these webinars, even 6 months ago, most people were in the 5 to 20. Now it's like, look at you, at 3/4 of everyone is 20 plus, right? So that's very different, for over the last year for sure. 80% voted, that's probably good. So nobody less than 5. Everybody here, it's literally 1/4 to 3/4. So 25% of you 5 to 20, 75% 20 plus. The next poll I'd like to open is what best describes your client base? Product-based, service-based businesses, or both? And then I'll know, like, in settings what really to spend time on. And that's the last poll. Cool, Melissa, both. Nice. Yeah, so far 60% voted, it's half and half, 50% service, 50% both. So it's interesting, and that also kind of confirms a theory I've been developing over the last several months that not a lot do you just focus on product-based businesses. Even your product-based business clients who sell products or non-inventory, even inventory, probably have a service arm. So again, this is probably no news to you all, right? I'm always learning this stuff after you because you're working with real clients. So you're always ahead of me by, 6 months at least. Some of you probably several years. But it's like 50% service-based businesses, 50% both, right? So good. We'll focus on that and not really even look at inventory, right? Although you 50% of both, but I'll show you where to turn it on, but I'm not actually going to go into the products and services list probably, if that's okay. Unless you really need to see it, let me know. So enough of the polls. Thanks for that. And then just ask questions in the questions box. All right, now I wanted to show, usually I go right into the overview tab, right? And we will, because this is kind of where you can look at company setup, banking activity, and common issues. But first, I want to do a line on something in settings you'll see. Now I'm going to right click and duplicate the tab I'm on. I assume you already know about how to get open windows in QBO. When you're in the client file, right? I'm not even in QBOA, right? I'm in a client file from QBOA. How? Because in the upper left it says QuickBooks Accountant. That's how I get back. So I'm in exactly as you would be. If I want to come back to this window, but I don't want to lose my place, so I'm right-clicking and duplicating the tab. All browsers do that. Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer. If you're using Internet Explorer, I would encourage you to use Chrome or Firefox for QBO, as QBO behaves wonky in Internet Explorer. We didn't optimize it. We didn't really choose IE. You know, Microsoft Edge is supported, but mostly I'm using Chrome and Firefox. I like them both. The only reason why I like Chrome better is Chrome has multiple people. So this is how, you know, Chrome, you can go into Chrome settings and add people. And that just allows me to log into QBO several times with the same login. So I'd have QBOA open like 3 times in 3 different Chrome user browsers. And that way it could be in multiple files. So there's benefits to having Chrome for the multiple people feature. It's not something about QBO, it's more about Chrome, but it indirectly affects or impacts QBO because, you know, in desktop, in your QuickBooks Account Edition, you can have up to 2 company files open, right? In Enterprise also. However, in browser, right, in QBO, you can't. When you're in the browser, you can't be in another file. So at least in Firefox or IE or Edge. But in Chrome, you can add people. You just go to like, I usually just click on the person. All of you have either a picture here, or it might say person 1. So I'll just click manage people, and then you click add person. Right? And you add the Chrome person, however many you think you need. How many client files are you going to need open at the same time during the day? That's really the measure. Maybe it's 2 Chrome user, maybe it's 3. Maybe you use Chrome for something totally unrelated to QBO, so you have a user set for that, and then you create like 2 or 3 users just for QBO. So pretty easy to do that. We have a browser best practice video on our website too. You can check out. It's like 9 minutes long. Valerie goes through all that stuff. So I like Chrome, but I also like Firefox. Okay. Now, I duplicated the tabs. This is just one example. It's better in reporting, lists, whatever. I want to go to Accountant Settings. There is a new setting to consider. We are in the client file. This is important. It's called Usage. Okay? It's right under Billing and Subscription. Now, if a client file is under Wholesale Billing, there is no Billing and Sub tab in Settings, right? We remove that from your client. Even if they're the master admin, they would not be able to see the Billing and Subscription or be able to do anything administratively regarding billing or subscription to the file that's under Wholesale Billing. If it's under Wholesale Billing, it's the firm credit card. It's managed from QBOA. And some of you probably have a 5 for 25, right? That's under Wholesale Billing. Or a multi-co promo. That's under Wholesale Billing. Some of you probably have, I have friends that are all over the map with Wholesale Billing or client bill, you know? So it's usually a mixed bag. Just wanted to make sure and align and kind of, or prevent you from having any fears, right? So Melissa has 525. I think if you have one and you filled them all, you can get a second one now. Call sales, I think so. I don't know if that's still going on. But under Wholesale Billing, so for Melissa's client, if this subscription was under Wholesale Billing, which it is, it's one of her 5 for 25 shells, right? So she filled it with a company. Me, her client, even though I'm the master admin on the file, I don't have this billing and sub tab. It's gone. And if I want to add payroll or I want to upgrade, Melissa has to do it. Okay? Now, usage limits, you're going to start seeing it. It's just for this, right? Plus maxes out at 5 users. If you need more than 5 users, it's Online Advanced. Chart of accounts, the usage limit now is 250. I have 158 accounts, so I'm pretty good. But if you have 300, you can keep going, but if they need to add another one, you have to upgrade, right? And then classes and locations, total of 40. So I have 24 left list elements for class and location that I could add. If I'm anticipating 50 or 60 or 75 classes, I need to upgrade to advanced, right? Now, if you're already at the usage limit, you can keep going. You just can't add any more. Okay, so you don't have to go up to advanced if you don't want to. You just can't add any more chart of accounts. You can't add a 251st, or if you're at 300, you can't add a 301, right? If I'm at 50 classes, I couldn't add a 51st, right, in plus. So this is where we're kind of making this usage cap on users, chart of accounts and location, and class location total, right? These three list elements. And if you need more, or you're anticipating more for a client, or you're bringing in a client and you know they're going to need more, and they don't even have a sub yet, you would start them off with QuickBooks Online Advanced. So I wanted to go over this kind of usage limit, right? So you know it's in settings, and then we'll come back to settings in a bit. I'm going to right-click duplicate, get one more tab open. So I want to go to Manage Users. Just a quick update there. You'll also see it in this window, right? I've enrolled 3 of 5 users. Well, yeah, and it takes me to a KB article on usage limits, right? So I can get another one. I have no idea why my master admin is inactive. That's odd. But I do a lot of interesting testing with my QBO files, so they're always suspect. Anyway, one master admin, right? I wanted to go over when you look at users. Let me see if I can edit this one. Like a standard user, we did add this payroll access, right? Okay, just so that it could be the all user to make deposits, because they like create invoices, they receive payments, but to make deposits you have to be the all user. But I don't want, you know, CWA to see, you know, payroll, so I can turn that off. Okay, there's that. That's pretty much as far as you can go for restriction and ability to remove payroll. If they're the all user, they still have access to registers, bank feeds, and company financial reports, right? So you consider that. We're still working on, you know, user perms with QBO in general. So a standard user, that's kind of changed, but I wanted to make sure you knew about the being able to uncheck payroll access for an all user, because they have to be all, because you want them to do bank feeds, or they have to be able to make deposits, right? Admin is company admin. And then you have reports only and time tracking only users as well. Reports only is at the plus level, or advanced, I should say. So I'm going to X out and not save that one, but that's something to consider from a user standpoint. In advanced, it does have a little more user permission. Someone can be sales and just sales, but no sales reports, and be able to make deposits too, you know, without being an all user. So if that's kind of where you're going with a particular client, that's something to consider as well. So anyway, and still hopefully just one accounting firm. If you partner with another one, then, you know, the client can invite, you know, maybe you're just doing the accounting and then you have another firm that does the tax, then you might see 2 slots here. But you really only need one. If it's just your client, they're not working with any other firm, it's not like you got to invite another person in the firm here. It's just me, and then everybody else is coming in through QBOA, right? So 2 accounting firm slots, you only really need to use one, because all your staff can come in through QBOA. And then just a little bit on users and stuff. And again, the usage limits, I think it's important to consider. All right, overview tab. When you're in the client file, eventually you will default to this window. Right now we come in through the dashboard, right? But soon you'll just come into the overview tab. And here's the stuff I can see. Let's just talk about cleanup, client mistakes, and we'll go through some of the best practices with that, surrounding chart of accounts, reporting, and bank feeds and stuff. And then the key settings to consider. I can see that they're on plus, though I can see that when I hover over the QB icon in QBOA in the client list. They have payroll and they have sales tax enabled, right? And I can also see, because I I do not have access to third-party apps when I'm in the client file. Right? The client would have to invite me to that. But at least I can see what third-party apps are connected to this subscription. Right? I have QVinci for reporting. I have auto entry to automate the data entry, Expensify. I mean, some of these you probably recognize, you know. Spotlight reporting is another one. So it's good to see the apps, just to know. Banking activity. So they have basics. Then you have banking activity. The bank balance. What's in QuickBooks? Unaccepted transactions. If I click on this, it'll bring me to banking window, the bank feeds, right? Unreconciled, and then what I'm reconciled through. Just so you know what you're up against in the file. Right, we're surfacing up some data. Anything blue you can drill into. Common issues is where we're going to start really adding stuff. So I noticed they have 15 unclear transactions and undeposited funds at 2609, right? So that's good to know. Now, it doesn't bring me to a report. It brings me to the undeposited funds register. Okay, so all these will bring you to a register at this time. I've already asked for report access from the link. And then if you click, this brings you back to the chart of accounts. So you have to click to the overview. They're working on that too. But uncategorized assets or expense income, undeposited funds, I have an amount in opening balance equity. We're going to go over that a little bit towards the end, but because when you create a new list, right, and put in an open balance, it hits OBE, right? So I'm going to give you some examples of that and how it got there. Journaling in just brings me to the register, right? So clearly I made some starting value adjustments, right? I changed the value of it. Obviously that's going to impact inventory asset, but we have to offset it somewhere. So it's OBE. Right, that's actually how I got to the negative 226. So we're still going to surface it up so you know that these are quote-unquote red flags in the file, right? And you can view all of these in chart of accounts. And again, usage limits. You're going to start seeing that. I just want to make sure you know of that. So that's the overview tab. We're going to be adding more. I mean, I can get to the chart of accounts from here. I can view the P&L and balance sheet from here. And then we will be adding more things to the overview tab, and eventually this is where you'll land. Your clients do not have this. It's only when you're in the file from QBOA, or it's also in advanced. If your client has advanced, they have an overview tab. Okay. Now, report tools, the briefcase. We'll talk about this in a bit. This is the number one tool most people use, Reclassify transactions. So this is like if you're in a client pro or premier file and you have the accountant menu, right? This is kind of what this is, a quote-unquote abbreviated accountant menu, because of course QBO just doesn't have the same feature set as desktop has. And that includes accountant edition cleanup tools versus what you can do in a client file in QBO. That's just how it is. But this batch Reclassify is key. It's still an old-looking window. All right, we call it unshim it one day, harmonize it if you will, make it look like all the other windows. I believe it's the last window that looks like old classic QBO in QuickBooks Online, period. Right, because we updated budgets, we updated the user list. With some of the other ones, that doesn't really matter. But anyway, this one's the old one, right? And it's gonna be addressed. Their team is addressing it. Now notice, see how I have this? It defaults to the last year, which is relatable to today, right? Or this time of year, and accrual. Or maybe I could switch it to cash. Now, how did I get that? We'll come back to settings. There is a report tools, accountant tool. Report tools, 4 from the bottom, right? You can set a default date range for your company financial summary reports, like be it balance sheet, P&L, and a few other detail reports. Not all reports will adhere to this report and tool default, okay? But if you were to change it to like last quarter and a cash basis, then when I go to say a profit and loss, it'll adhere to that, right? And so with the batch Reclassify tool, if I refresh, it should look at last quarter and cash basis. Yeah. So just know that there's a report tool where you can just go in and set the date range default and the basis default for your, not all reports. Don't think you're going to look at it in all reports. The trial balance still opens to this month to date. So does the G&L. Most detail reports still open to this month to date. So, but your main financial summary reports that you're going to run anyway, the 3 or 4 typical ones, will default to what you choose in report tools, okay? Now, nice thing about this, if you haven't seen it, is I have all these travel expenses. Hilton's fine, Uber, yeah, McDonald's, no, that's odd. Applebee's, no. So I could then move them in a batch, right? You're just moving them to a different account. Whether it's travel, lodge, no, it's not. Oh, I remember the example. See, I'm going to be merging those accounts. All these Hiltons, and I can't shift click. I was hoping I could. Well, you could do this, right? And then I could uncheck like Applebee's, McDonald's, Uber, right? Uber. So all these Hiltons would go to, right, travel, lodging, okay? I'll merge it later. Or you can do some class tracking, right? But for account-based transactions, you can batch Reclassify. So your client sets up a really bad rule in bank feeds and it hits the wrong account, you know? Or they just have these recurring transactions going, checks, bills, whatever, going to wrong accounts, right? You don't have to individually impact the transaction, okay? Just like in desktop, you can go in and batch Reclassify. But a lot of people use this tool as well just to bird's eye. like accounts and see, the transaction type in the accounts. So these are all invoices. Good. It's revenue. And cost of goods sold. I have some invoices, sure, because that's probably inventory parts, or because they debit COGS when you sell it, right? Inventory parts. Checks, checks, yeah. See, I have this with Clay that we're not supposed to be using checks for this. So a lot of people will just it's like a list report, go into job materials. What transaction type? Because I can sort, right? Make sure there are no bills in here, right? We're not hitting payable with this, etc. Or just use it for what it really is. Move poorly coded transactions to the right account. So this is a well-known tool, right? It's in there. Voided deleted transaction, right? What's been voided or deleted in the last quarter? So it's gonna show the same one, and then Valerie has deleted a bunch of stuff, and so have I. So I usually do, and Valerie's not in this file a lot, but I want to know why she did. She deleted 2 payroll checks, so I need to know that. So this is good, right? And you can click View to see, when the transaction was added, right? What are the splits? And then, when it was deleted. And you can even compare. There's a compare. I'll look back, show changes. Anyway, so the voided deleted transaction report can be very helpful, right? And you can clear the whole view. It's built off the audit log report, which you can get from reports, accountant reports, or gear icon audit log, right? And because you can filter by particular users, which I like. You can find particular user and then, what they did this month. All events are just like when they signed in and out, or just transactions, all the transactions she might have worked on, right? So nothing this month. Thought she did something in February. Well, anyway, helpful report, okay? And it's the voided deleted transaction report built off the audit log. Now, the other thing to mention is you have a close date, and this will bring us into settings. Okay. Now, of course, you can get to journal entries another way, and you have write-off invoices and member report tools, right? Another window open if you don't want to do the right-click duplicate thing. The prepare for taxes, before I go to close books, let me just show you. This would be the working trial balance. It does take a while to load, right? And I think it's still kind of in a beta state, right? It only looks at last year, though, or a year in length, okay? So just know that. But we did make some changes to how it's the visual, the user interface. So I have the balance sheet accounts, and it opens in a collapsed mode, which I like. So you'd have to click out to expand. I wish a lot of our reports had that ability. Balance sheet P&L, right? You can you can go into the actions column. There's some actions there. Let me see if I have any. Go into a particular account I think I need. Yeah, there we go. Make an adjustment. That'd be journal entry. Add a note, add an attachment, right? So that's where that stuff is. You have to accept the changes. Now it's a working trial balance, right? And then you can send it over to ProConnect Tax Online or export it as a CSV. Before you go to PTO, do click on the tax mapping, right? I have a lot of mapping I need to do, right? And accept the changes that I've made before you send it over. But it's a working trial balance called Prep for Taxes, right? So it's brand new. You should see that as well. All right, I'm going to go to close books. This will drive us into settings. It's an advanced setting, right? I have it off, but if I had just done the cleanup here, close the books, choose a date, typical, and then you do a password. Now, the company admin and the master admin would be able to come in and uncheck this. Everybody else can't. But if Woody doesn't know the password, right, it's going to prompt me to call or email you. So, that's good to prevent me from deleting or voiding something. So it's a similar tool as it is in desktop, right? You can set a password on it. It's just that all admin type users can remove it. Just know that. So that's where you go set a closed book. In the same date or password, right? And it's just, you can only have one date on it. It doesn't close a year every 2 years or something like that. It's not really a hard close. I would call it a soft close. Very much like desktop. So, but accounting preferences, right? First month, income tax year, the method, this really doesn't do anything. It impacts a couple tools. But if you change it to cash, it doesn't mean your reports are going to default to cash basis. Right? So I usually just leave it to accrual. Company type, chart of accounts, class tracking. Right? This is where you turn on class or location tracking. Now, just for those, because this one comes up a lot, let me go to, just a bill. It's a good example. Location. Let's say I have this bill has several line items on it. We'll say this is freight too, and it was some kind of freight and delivery for, I don't know, $5,000 of this, right? The whole amount, $72,500, goes to this location, right? But I could have this line go to a particular class. And that's the main difference between class and location outside of, oops, sorry, I did those backwards. Outside of, you can't do a balance sheet by class because class is only at the target level. And we'll do that another day and explain that one. It's a not super complicated concept, but it's a source versus target. And class is always target. And the AP is always at the source, summary level. So when you run an AP, you can't really filter an AP agent report by class or even a balance sheet. The AP amounts, if you're doing a balance sheet and total by class, you'll have 0 in the AP and AR columns. So, but location, balance sheet, yes, balance sheet by location. I only mention it because it's important to note for like nonprofit clients. If they can get away with one location per bill or check, regardless of the total amount, all going to the one location, then balance sheet by location is great. But if they need it split out, like the split lines need to be across class, the AP doesn't really reflect that. So it's just important to note when you're consulting with your nonprofit clients. Not that the Premier Enterprise balance sheet by class report's any better, but there is one in the desktop. Not in Pro though. So class versus location, that's that, right? You turn that on. Of course, profit and loss by class or by location all day long. No real restrictions there. It's only around the balance sheet. Okay, I'm going to click Save and Close. That's class location tracking, right? You need plus or advanced automation. The big one is, pre-fill forms with preview center content. That's for any name, not just vendors, but also customer and employees. But I still have friends that turn that on just because, the next bill or check to the vendor pre-fills the info from last one. It's helpful. I always leave these off until the client proves me otherwise, particularly the automation of invoicing. Any unbilled activity I have, meanings where on this bill, I might as well go to that bill, right, that I just did. If you tag like a customer and make it billable, right, it's going to pass it through, right? So you can automate creation of invoices against unbilled material expense or time in Essentials Plus and Advanced, not in Simple Start or Self-Employed, just by checking the box. It's a global setting though. So every Wednesday, right, it would create like invoices, or we'll do it for tomorrow. I'll have a bunch of invoices created for unbilled time, material expense. But if you don't want it so global, then I would suggest, and we'll look quickly, sorry if I'm moving around too quickly, we'll get to reporting in a sec. Recurring transactions, right? You might know them as memorized transactions in desktop. So it's the same thing. Essentials Plus and Advanced support recurring transactions. You can do almost any transaction type. Bill, check, invoice, credit card expense. It's better to say the ones you cannot set as recurring. There are 3. Paycheck, bill payment check, receive payment against an invoice. Excuse me. Those you cannot set as to recurring. But for me, receive payment against an invoice, really, if I was doing a recurring monthly subscriptions, I'd be using a sales receipt anyway. Make that recurring with QuickBooks payments turned on. Auto debit my customer. People got to get more into that. ACH, yeah, it takes 5 days to fund, but it's free. Got to get more into that. Payments is free. Turn it on. It's a setting. Set up recurring sales receipts. You can do this. If you're using your YourBooks file to track all your clients and bill them, why are you using invoices? You should be using recurring sales receipts and QuickBooks payments. You put in their ACH info. It just pulls from their account monthly like your utility bill or something you're doing. Do the same thing. Unless, the client just, it's not acceptable to them, that payment model, but some of your clients will accept it. All right? So anyway, recurring transactions, okay? Now, I wanted to go to one specifically for Rafal because he's actually one of my biggest customers because I bill him $2,000 a month. It's a recurring invoice. It's not a sales receipt because, like I said, he just falls into that category that if I were to corral him into a recurring sales receipt and auto debit from his bank account, he might leave me. Okay? So that's fine. I'm sure you have those situations too. It automatically sends him the invoice, and it includes any unbilled activity. So he's going to get billed $2,000 for this auger he rents from us, but we also do other stuff. So any other services, I make sure on the expense or the bill or the check or the delayed charge form or the time entry that I tag his name in the name field, like I showed you on that bill, and make sure I check the box billable. So this recurring invoice prevents me from having to turn that global setting on because there's more of my customers, I'd say 90% of them, I don't invoice automatically. So that global setting isn't going to work for me. I mean this one, right? This won't work for me. So I just set up recurring invoices for any customer that I am going to be automatically creating an invoice against unbilled time, material, expense. Okay? So there's that too. I mean, I like the recurring transactions for other things, bills, checks, rent, whatever. But I mean, for invoicing, it's helpful. And sales receipt, do make a mental note about the recurring sales receipt in the Your Books file with payments turned on to get the auto ACH payment from your clients. I would say a majority of the firms that are doing the whole firm of the future thing, firmofthefuture.com, that is how they're billing their clients, not accounts receivable. They're using sales receipts. Okay, good. Let's see, that was automating. We'll get to the bank feeds in a sec. Other key settings. So went over that. Again, I don't have that. Project tracking, yes, I have that turned on. Time tracking, both Essentials Plus and Advanced support this, and the ability to pass through time, material, expense to an invoice. Then multi-currency, you need Essentials and up for that. By the way, always go into a client file, the sign me out if inactive, do 3 hours, just in case it defaults to 1. You probably know. You probably, like me, found out the hard way. Now, other settings that are important to consider, and then we'll move on to reporting, and then bank feeds, and then some of the client mistakes. Member usage, we went over that. Sales, like there's customizing forms. If you're taking an upfront deposit, you can do that, or discounts, though I like price rules for that, which is also a sales setting. I talked about custom fields. You can have 3 on invoices, sales receipts, or estimates, not on any cost form, and it's only at the top section of the form. Okay? But it can help for reporting. Like I can build out a sales by rep report if I want to. I just use a custom field. I tag the sales rep on all my invoices and sales receipts. I run a sales by detail report or whatever. And I can add the rep field or filter by a particular rep. Okay, just so I know what then to pay them out on. I still have to figure out the commission, kind of like you do in desktop, but there is a way to get a sales by rep report. Right? So use your custom fields. But there's only 3, and they're in the top part of the invoice or the sales receipt or the estimate. Okay. Products and services, here's where you turn inventory on. Okay. And then progress invoicing, yes, I have that turned on. I invoice progressively against estimates till they're closed. That's all that does. Those are the key main ones that if you haven't really been keeping up on what's new in QB over the last year, these are some of the things we've added in. Price rules also, this is price levels. There's a price rule list. So that's really helpful. I would mention, because I probably won't be showing it in product because we're getting to more, we got like a half hour left. I got to get to some of the mistakes and bank feeds and some more automation and reporting. But we have some recordings, I should say, on this site, and I will put it in the chat area. If you have some time, there is these Beyond the Basics service-based business. This is 50 minutes long, and then you have the product-based business. These go deep into when you turn on those settings, what happens, and then I walk through the transactional workflow and the reporting result and some of the workarounds that I've learned from friends, right? So these group webinars, though they're not live, it's like this, just recorded, right? So I do encourage you to, if you want to know more about service-based workflows or product-based workflows or how these settings impact transactional workflow and reporting, what are the best practices, then watch those. And feel free to share them with your clients too. Now, probably the most important settings that I think are in QBO are in the expense. And only in Plus and Advanced will have this. If you're using two-sided items, show items table on expense and purchase forms, right? Very important. So when I'm doing a credit card expense, right? And I think we saw it with the bill. And I was buying some stuff from Amazon, right? Item details. Two-sided item. This thing that I'm buying, it's a two-sided item, right? I can buy 10 from Amazon of this appliance on an expense. And I can also use it on a sales receipt or invoice. Let me duplicate the tab because I want to show what that setting means. Let's go to the products and services list. See? So let's go to my non-inventory parts. This appliance, right? Oh, sorry, there we go, edit. Two-sided, meaning this item can hit sales or product income, so I'm using it on sales forms, right? Basically, usually a sales receipt or invoice. And then purchase. I use it also to purchase. It's hitting COGS. Double-sided item. You need Plus or Advanced for this. Not going to happen in Essentials. Essentials, though I can have an item hitting a cost of goods sold, they're single-sided items. I could never in Essentials buy items on a check, bill, or credit card expense. It's important to note, I mean, if you're service-based, most of you guys are in Plus. You have to. You need two-sided items, even for like the profitability piece, right? Because maybe you're tagging this particular project, right? The framing flooring project, and I'm passing it through. Or maybe I'm not passing it through to an invoice because they agreed on the estimate, but I still need to tag the $2,000 so when I run a profit and loss by project profitability, I can see the expense. Tag to that particular project in that column. This setting is really critical, I think. I think this is what really makes QBO akin to Pro for job costing. And then you have make them billable, right? But maybe if you have a client that doesn't actually do any like invoicing against time material expense, then turn it off. But you still want to track items and expense by customer, right? For P&L by. So I've seen it this way. I've seen it, usually they have a billable, but it's really up to you. You know, and for lawyers, you're just going to you're going to be using the billable thing all the time. And the automating that probably, either with a recurring invoice or turn on the global setting. So, yes, you can do those things. And you can automate it. Even that's an advantage over desktop. In desktop, I still have to choose the time material expense to go to an invoice. And I can't auto-send it or auto-create it. I just want batch invoicing in QBO, you know. I think group billing, I think that's key. All right, payments, I told you about that, right? Sign up for that, apply for it, it's free. And then set up recurring sales receipts. I mean, that's more as a tip for you all using your books file in QBOA, right? Get away from accounts receivable if you can. And then we were started off in advanced, right? So those are the key settings you consider. Now, good, I'll just save and close this expense. Deal. All right, let's go to, I have next reporting. Just quickly, I'm going to go to the main reporting window. Standard, custom, management, right? Those are the three tabs. Standard are just your report list. And it's like, you know, business overviews like company financial, right? But if you're looking for the GL, the trial balance, well, you probably already found it. It's in the accountant report section for my accountant, right? So here's where I have the general ledger. Here's where I have the trial balance report, things like that, right? Transaction detail by account is a good one. We'll go ahead and open that. I usually do star them because when I star them, it puts them in that favorite section at the top of the reports window, okay? The transaction detail by account, again, look, it defaulted to this month to date. Remember, but I have that report tool set the last quarter in cash. So again, to my point, I just don't want you leaving here thinking the report tool thing, that default setting will impact all reports. It impacts a few reports, balance sheet, P&L, and a couple others. So just so you know. And that batch Reclassify tool, which is helpful. So I'm coming in here just because I want to mention the little gear icon, which is on all lists and reports, other settings. It's even on some transactions to get to the settings. You don't always have to go to here to turn settings on forms or on reports, Definitely operational settings are here, but there's a little gear icon on the chart of accounts, on your customer vendor list, on your product service list, on most reports. So just know to look for it because I can quickly turn some stuff off. And I usually get rid of amount balance and add debit credit and just step off because I want to see debit credit, not amount balance. Okay? And this is basically kind of like a GL, kind of abbreviated, if you will. Transaction detail by account is great because I can group by different things and I can also filter by different things, particularly around transaction type, like just looking at all payments hitting undeposited funds, for example, or distribution account is the target account, maybe, et cetera. So that's filtering. You're probably already doing a lot with reporting more than I am. But just my point is save your customizations so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Now you can add it to a group or not. We will talk about auto sending next. There is a way to auto send reports, though they're not encrypted, so know that. In your state, you might not be allowed to do that, but your clients might be able to do it. I can auto send reports out of QBO if they're part of a group. So you would add them to a group or just leave it. And you can share it with all, meaning the people that have the ability to see this report, which would essentially be, because this is more of a company financial report. Company financial, I would consider this a business review detail report. So only the all and the admins will be able to see this, not the sales and vendor people. But you could do it firm only, so only people from QBOA are going to see this report. Not even the master admin of the file. Clay wouldn't see it. So, this sometimes on a larger report or a list, I hit this little icon here just to give me a couple more inches, depending, just so you know. So let's go back to the reports list. I could have used a balance sheet and drilled down that. I could have used a P&L. Custom reports. This is where my custom reports would be. And I think this is the one I just created, right? Yeah, this one. So I don't have to reinvent it next time. If it's part of a group, though, right, you can schedule the group to auto send. All right, every week on Friday, people who don't have access to the file will get this email with the report as a PDF. So there's that, but it's not encrypted, okay? It's just it's as secure as the email is. It's going to be an attached PDF. Management reports, that's if you want to create your own report packages. It is not QuickBooks Statement Writer. If you need QuickBooks Statement Writer-ish, or your client does, to build out different reports and more columns and all this stuff, you need Advanced that has Fathom built in, right? Or attach QVinci to the client file. That is like having Statement Writer linked to your file, client's file, right? But what this is just building report packages, right? So we'll give you a couple templates. You go in here. You can choose a logo, a firm logo if you want, cover page, table of contents, and then you choose the actual reports you want. You might not want statement of cash flow, and you can choose all of your, canned reports. It's the one we just did. I'll change it to like this here. So, and you can put a default footer, for the SARS-21 or default header, things like that. So I'm not actually customizing the report any more than I already did. I'm just building out a report package. And then it just, goes to a Word doc or PDF. It looks a lot better than just the normal reports, okay? So not much on management reports. We have a video on our site on it, but it's worth considering if you're used to, at this time of the year, putting together a package of reports. But standard reporting, again, P&L. Now, I want to talk about a phenomenon. Here it is, unapplied cash payment income. What if you are previous period, quarter before that, and run the report? Oh, good. I didn't have any then. But before I drill down, you don't want to lose your place, right? So again, right-click duplicate, okay? Just know that. I'm not going to do it, but don't lose your place. Right-click duplicate the tabs. But then you would drill down, and I'd look at and see what caused the unapplied cash payment income. Typically, it's an invoice dated ahead of the payment, or I took a deposit ahead. And on a cash basis, it's not a bug. You might think it's a bug because you've never really heard of an account like that, and you're right. But it's just designed that when on a cash basis, we have to make sure that everything balances on the P&L. The cash basis P&L, and if I've taken a payment ahead of the invoice or a deposit ahead, or I haven't applied a payment to an open invoice, on a cash basis in that period, you're going to see an amount in unapplied cash payment income. That's how it's designed. It's the same with the expense. You'd see unapplied bill payment expense or something. You guys have probably seen it. So you would just have to go and apply the payment to the invoice or the deposit to the invoice, or what have you. So there's that. But I wanted to show that on the actual, P&L report, right? So, yeah, I mean, that's enough for reporting. You guys are doing way more. Just know that, yes, you can go to export to Excel, print, email, and remember the little gear icon. Summary reports, you won't have much to filter or customize on. Detail reports, of course. You'll have way more options, more columns, more things to filter on, etc. All right. We talked about auto send, how to add debit credit columns to detail reports, save your customizations. Bank rec discrepancy. Let's go to accounting reconcile. Now this is a report too, but let's talk about reconcile in general, and then we'll go to chart of accounts and merging, and then we'll go to bank feeds and automating data entry, and then transaction messaging, which is kind of cool, and we'll look at overstated AR, duplicate accounts, opening balance equity. Okay, that's what we're going to look at in the next 20 minutes, right? So if you have to go, email me, I'll send you the video, the recording. But I did spend I lost 5 minutes on usage limits. But client's going to call you later today or tomorrow morning going, hey, Melissa, there's this new setting called usage, and it says I'm at 192 accounts of 250. What do I have to do? Do I have to upgrade? And then you can tell her, no, you don't. We're not adding more chart of accounts. It's just, there's this new advanced and, right? Just so you know. That's all that's why I spent the time on it. Okay, I just don't want you to be stuck. This is really the discrepancy report. If there is a discrepancy, you'll see this hold on. Your account isn't ready to reconcile yet. We can help you fix it, and it gives me the amount that's jacked. Now, I have a lot of stuff deleted between Valerie and I, right? We know that. Nothing really easy on that. I got to just figure out if I have to recreate them, right? I wish you could just kind of recreate them in a batch from this window. That'd be sweet, but you have to find out. I mean, I can view the audit log, and it'll take me the audit log for who deleted it and why and something like that. But really, when there is an amount change or they hit R in the column, right? We know that's not really reconciling it. So you could go ahead and make it, unclear it, if you will, or maybe it's at least cleared but not yet reconciled. And I could put that, yes, it's supposed to be 2000, right? So I can make inline edits. So this is really the reconcile discrepancy report. It's not the same as the one in desktop. I think there's still more on that report. It's more helpful. I forgot. An accountant friend of mine told me and gave me a list of why, and I forget. I passed it up as an enhancement request. But still, we do have a discrepancy difference report, if you will. Okay? And that's right in here. Right when you see up here. Brings you to it. Now, a lot of people want to know the summary because they'll use this as a quote-unquote report and send to their clients. We put that back in. We had taken it out. So that's in there. And then history by account. This is where you go see your monthly reconcile reports and then where you can undo, right? It's very similar to undoing in desktop. It'll undo that one and the November one. And I'll have to go back and do end of October again. Okay? So only you guys get the undo option, not your clients. Okay? They'll get this report, history by account, but they won't have undo. And we'll show auto adjustments or any changes that were made. And then you can go ahead and click View Report if you want to see the changes up top, right, from deleted transactions. And then, Remember, hide additional info. That locks it in, so I won't show anything beyond 1031. Okay? There's that too. And then just reconcile in general. I mean, again, you're doing this way more than me. I guess this would be, really? Haven't done December? All right, interesting. Right? I mean, it's going to look at all, and there's a huge difference because I don't know the ending balance, right? This is fake data. But I always encourage it. It does filter the statement ending date, but there's filtering options, right? So you can find more stuff. And some of the columns are sortable. Right. But I don't really have any best practices with Reconcile, and you guys are doing this way more than me. Okay, so that's about as far as I go. Now let's go back to chart of accounts. And again, usage limits. You'll start seeing this. A client calling you, Melissa, I have 158 accounts. What is that all about? What do you mean usage limits? You'd be like, don't worry, you have another 142, which we're never going to fill because you already have way too many accounts as it is. Anyway, I'm all for keep it simple. Now, merging or just chart of account in general, just so you know, I'm going to look for that lodging count. I'm going to edit it. This detail type, when you create new accounts, right, you have to choose detail type. And for you, you're like, why? What is that? Because in desktop, you just create a new travel expense, and the type is really already expense. And the detail type is irrelevant because it's assumed in the name. But when we created QBO, remember, QuickBooks Online actually released first version of it December of 2001. It's like 18 years old. I don't think we really invested much into it till like 2012 though, and then 14 and stuff. And then we got real serious about it. But if it was just me setting up accounts, this is a reason for this design approach. Woody's not really going to know. So he doesn't have an accountant. So to set it up, so what kind of travel is it? Well, it's travel meals, right? So, or lodging or, whatever. That's why we have a detail type. It only matters when you're merging accounts or when you're importing. Like from, gear icon, import data, you can import chart of accounts. When you convert from desktop, it's assumed. We take care of that. But you have to have a detail type. That's the only time it matters. The rest of the time, just when you're setting it up, it's just more of a pebble in the shoe, right? You just choose the detail type and move on. If I look for traveling, I got two. Now let's just pretend that, Woody created an extra account, but it's just going to go into travel because on the tax form, it's totally normal just to have it grouped in there and there's no reason to have more accounts, right? So how would I do this? Well, just like in desktop, you'd merge it. In merging, you're going to edit the account to be like the one you want it to go into. Same name, same number, whatever. It has to be the same detail type. If this was like travel meals or something else, I'd get an error that you have to change the type before you merge. Okay? So I'm going to click edit, and I'm going to call it just travel. It's the same type, right? I made it easy for myself. But just know you need to have the same detail type when you're merging chart of accounts, making them into one. Now, I do have a check written to lodging, so that's just going to roll up. We'll run a quick report on the travel account next, okay? Save and close. Name's already being used. Would you like to merge them? You can do this with customers, products and services, vendors, and, of course, chart of accounts, which is the typical, right? Now I have travel. Quick report. Where are you? 90 days ago. Wait a minute. Let's do this week. Yeah, so I had that one from yesterday, right? I was just trying to can some data for this today. I had lodging, but now it's in travel, and I don't even think, let's see what the audit log, because this will matter. By the way, I'm glad we came in here. This might seem superfluous, but on any saved transaction, sometimes you want to know the debit credit behind it. Click the More tab, Transaction Journal. That's going to show what was debited, credited. So I have travel for all dates, right? That travel lodging's gone. But if I go back to the expense, that's not the one I want. What was it again? Oh, duh. Sorry, just click into the transaction type. More, audit history. Now that has lodging, parenthetical, deleted. And sometimes you'll see it on reports and stuff. So what happens when you merge an account? Well, we make it inactive, right? When you fold it into the account you want or merge it into, travel and travel lodging become one. The account that you merged into, right, the merging account, if you will. Sorry, I'm just really struggling with how to say that. Maybe it's not as confusing as I think it is. That's going to be quote-unquote made inactive because, and that's an important part, on the chart of accounts, if you have some ridiculous account that doesn't matter or you want to get under 150, I'm sorry, say you're at 255 and you want to add another account, you got to delete 6. Deleting is really making them inactive, right? So you're just going ahead and making them inactive. That deletes them. But that counts for usage limits. So inactive elements don't count against the usage limits, which is really important to know. And remember, if a client really doesn't want to go to advanced, but they're really close to accounts and users and classes or locations, just don't add anymore. They don't have to. We're not going to force them into advanced. They can stay at plus. Okay, so good. I think we've nailed that one enough for today. And we just did some merging. So bank feeds and rules, and then we'll end with overstated AR and OBE. Banking. You're probably doing a lot more bank feeds than I am. But it's important to note, as I'm looking at the checking account, right, I got 67 unaccepted transactions, meaning they have yet to be added to the register in the checking. And I click on Recognize because I want stuff to turn green. So I've created rules, or there'll be a match, right? So it's not duplicated. The lump sum deposit came in and there's a $2,000 invoice, so they match. Or there was a payment that was in the register and it came in through the bank feed, so it matches. Okay? Very important. I got another one down here. Something weird going on. I shouldn't see two. I'll work on that later. But the action columns either add, stuff not yet in the register, not yet in the books, or match, stuff already there, because Woody entered it and I don't want to duplicate it. The feed shouldn't. Bank feed or credit card feed. So yeah, I like stuff recognized because then I can just, batch accept. All the batch activity right now is really in the bank feed. Outside of recurring transactions, the automation and batch functionality is in the bank and credit card feeds. Rules really important, okay? You can create rules for any predictable expense. Anything that happens all the time, Home Depot, Amazon, Lowe's, food stuff, gas, that's always a big one. I go to several different gas stations in the city, and I actually take a picture of the receipt on my phone and adds it to the file. That's in one of those videos there, QBO Mobile, and it creates an expense. But I like, having a rule so that the feed either, well, I never enter that into QBO. I let the feed do it, because that stuff hits like 2 days later, unless I use debit card for gas. So it hits like the next day, right? So there's no reason for me to come into QBO and add a debit expense. I will wait for the feed to drop that in. And I think that's a good approach to take. But rules are important. Anytime you see stuff that happens all the time, create a rule for it. This is the most important sentence in the whole window. When a transaction meets any or all, right? Certainly wouldn't want all for this. Why? Because anything that had a 7 in it would go to 7-Eleven, right? You've probably seen some crazy stuff when clients get a hold of rules. I really believe you're the ones to do them for me, right? So that I don't. But know that you can batch undo and you can reclassify in a batch, right? We know that now. We have fail safes, but still sometimes it takes a while to find it. When I might have messed it up by creating this rule that's just outrageous. So keep that in mind. And if this one doesn't really need to be, so no, any or all. Any's going to be pretty inclusive, right? Anything. All would be these 3 things have to happen in order for this to happen. You know what I mean? So now, automatically add to my books. If this does not need to be if this does not need to be reviewed, once the rule's applied, we'll put it in the register for you. That's automation of data entry. That and recurring transactions. Okay, and I think I have a rule here for that. Google, yeah, check it out. This is an auto add rule. Okay, it's the same time. It's the same thing every month. $39.99 or something stupid like that. Let me find that. Expenses, Google, vendors. Where are you? Still doing this? I think he is. Yeah. So last month, right? Should be seeing the next one soon. Online banking matches. With the bank feed, when you go to the transaction, drill into the blue, right? Automatically added with rule. That's the mode. If I didn't have the box checked, it would say manually added with rule, and that's important to note because while I like this box, if I go back to the rule, really helpful, you're not going to want it on for everything. Anything that needs to be like reviewed by you, I would uncheck it. But anything that doesn't, check it off because then Woody won't even see it and he won't try to change it to some other account, because he looks at the bank feed, right? I don't know. I look at that option as a fail-safe against me doing something stupid, okay? So, but you know how to batch change that if you need to. Now, so rules, very important. One of the biggest common mistakes with bank feeds they'll make is around the not using undeposited funds. So just make sure on a sales receipt or the receive payment window, when there is like something open, I think Rafal, right? Make sure that, you hit undeposited funds because that groups the payments together, right? And then you go make the deposit, right? And it will match the lump sum deposit coming in from the feed. So that one's important. Because there's no default setting for undeposited funds. There's a field, right? But anybody can change it. They would have access for that. So know to look for that too. All right, overstated AR. I have an invoice, number 1553. It's linked to an estimate. That's fine, right? I've not received the payment yet. So I have debited AR and credited the revenue. However, if you were to go to the sales record of this customer, let's drill into Tasha here, and I'm going to filter for all transactions and deposits. You're going to see this deposit down here for 414.13. By the way, do you guys know about that filter? So if you want to show the deposits too, very important. I think that helps because this is like a list report, right? Invoices, payments, all the activity linked to this customer, but a lot of times deposits don't show because the default filter is for all just transactions, not deposits too. So I'm going to go into this deposit because this is what will happen. Now this is a problem. Why? Well, the invoice hit income for the 414.38 too. So I just double booked revenue. My AR is still open. So how I'd handle it is I would change this to AR because this would be a credit AR and then apply it in the receive payment window, right, to wash it out. And there's other ways because this deposit could be reconciled or something. So there's other tricks too, and I forget what they do. I think that's where you can look at like Hector Garcia and Michelle Long's like QB Power Hour YouTube page. Like how do you fix undeposited funds or how do you fix overstated income? It's in the advanced cert too. I think you add another line because you can't change the amount here. So you do like a $0 line to some uncategorized expense so that it doesn't unreconcile itself. I don't know. You have to look at that. I used to know. I used to be able to do it, but I'm too far removed from that stuff and I forget how you clean that kind of thing up. But at least you know when there's something overstated. And that's something just to train them on, right? Receive a payment against the invoice, then make the deposit. Do not just put the payment in through the register or go do a deposit when you haven't actually closed the AR. That's going to overstate income. And then lastly, the last 2 minutes, the last key thing is opening balance equity. Remember we went in here, there was a common issue, 220, 625. We know that's from inventory value adjustments, but it can also happen when, let's go to the products and services list. When you add a new item, they add a new inventory part. This is how they create opening balance equity when you don't want them to. If they add a new inventory part and put in an additional quantity on hand, we offset it to opening balance equity. When they add a new customer or vendor and they go to the payment and billing and put in a opening balance, we offset it to opening balance equity. And then the big one that you probably see too is that they will go to the chart of accounts and they'll add a new bank account. And they will put in a balance, which we offset to opening balance equity. Opening balance equity gets credit in all these situations, and that's why you see a positive balance. Now, my opening balance equity is negative because the value adjustments, they decremented inventory asset, right? They credited it, and they had to debit something else, which is OBE, which would then make a negative amount for OBE, right? Because equity, you credit it to raise it, debit it to, right, think a T-chart. And you know that better than me anyway. So this is how opening balance equity happens in the file.